So on the agenda, so we're going to just start out and look at some system requirement changes, and we'll look at our upgrade process. So we have a dev environment, and we did upgrade to Enterprise 11, just so that we could check that out for you guys before you do it. And then we're going to break this down into some sections here. So we're going to look at Enterprise Portal, content management, administration, and apps, and just looking at what you're going to get and what might be going away. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to cover everything today. We only have a short 25 minutes. So we are hoping to do a longer webinar in the spring when Enterprise 11.0.1 is released, where we'll be able to look at what's new with server roles like GeoEvent and image server and the GeoAnalytics server. And we're also hoping to be able to provide some examples of 2 new beta features in Enterprise 11. So beta features themselves are new to the product release cycle. So as you can see on here, we've got the product release cycle, and at the end, I've got a list of resources, and we link to this product release cycle. So Esri is going to start introducing these beta features on the short releases. So the short releases are, like in this example, would be 11.0, 10.9, 10.8. The extended support releases are the long-term releases. So those are your .1s and .8s, or like 9.1, 8.1, 7.1. So much like the short releases themselves, beta features are not meant for your production environment, but they're used to test new functionality and then provide feedback that will help to bring that functionality into future extended support releases. So this doesn't necessarily mean that each beta feature will make it into the next extended release. So the hope is that that would happen, but they preface that, and we'll link more to that at the end, where they talk about the beta features and what those are used for. So the new beta features in Enterprise 11 are service webhooks, available for the same conditions available for ArcGIS Online feature service webhooks, and custom data feeds, which will allow you to expose data as input for read-only feature services, including formats that aren't typically supported by ArcGIS clients without needing to register it with Enterprise. So this will be a separate install that's available through the early adopter community. So the main major change to system requirements for Windows, and this is excluding .NET, which I'll mention later on, is the supported operating system. So in Enterprise 10.9.1, Windows Server 2012 and 2012 R2 standard and data center were both supported. In Enterprise 11, your minimum operating system version is going to be Windows Server 2016. So things to think about. And not to forget, if there's any Linux users out there, I don't specialize in Linux. I don't know a lot about it, but there were some changes from looking at the system requirements, and it looks like Red Hat Enterprise Linux Server 7 is out at Enterprise 11, and it looks like they've added Oracle Linux 8 to the supported operating system. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our upgrade process. So we went from version 10.9.1 to 11. So Esri currently supports the ability to move from as early as 10.7.1 directly to Enterprise 11. But there are reasons that you might want to land on version 10.9.1. So one of the major changes at 11, and we'll mention briefly a little bit later, is the retirement of the ArcMap runtime. Enterprise 10.9.1 is the last release where the ArcMap runtime will be available to you. You will also have the ability to exclude the ArcMap runtime from your upgrade if you choose to do so. There's also some apps that Esri will be retiring in 11, and 10.9.1 is the last release where you will have the newer version and the old versions existing side by side. And that's just going to allow you to migrate more easily. And we'll go over what those apps are in a bit more detail later. At 10.9.1, you are able to take advantage of the ArcMap to ArcPro migration tools. And you can do that either through the server manager or through the server tools. And the resources at the end of the PowerPoint, I recorded a short demo video on how to use the Update ArcMap Services batch tool. So there wasn't a lot different in the upgrade process itself. Overall, we did notice some faster install times, which I'm sure everybody will appreciate. And one nice addition that I thought was the status updates here through the portal upgrade. A lot of times you're just kind of sitting there in versions before, and you don't know where you're at in that process. So this was kind of nice to see those steps and what was actually being done during that time. So another thing that we wanted to test, I did mention that there are some apps that are retiring. So we decided to test leaving a couple apps in their retired format. And we noticed, and then we upgraded and noticed that they appeared in our content, but they had a depreciated badge next to them. And as you can see over here, there was no way to access those. So again, being at 10.9, if you do have your apps in those retired versions, 10.9.1 allows you to have both the newer version and the older version side by side, so you can open it up, look at what you have in your older version, and be able to migrate that a lot easier. So definitely recommend making sure you take care of those things before you upgrade. So now we'll take a look at Enterprise Portal. So we'll take a look at first at what you're going to get. So this is nice. Some of you, if you have ArcGIS Online, may have noticed this there. But in Enterprise, you're going to see in general some of the newer functionality from ArcGIS Online. So the first addition here is categories for portal members. So this will allow you to categorize your users by department or hierarchy or both, or any way you choose. So in this example, I added a sewer department and a water department, and then I categorized it by managers and field workers. So 2 additional privileges have also been added under member roles, and that's the ability for users to reassign content and then receive content reassigned by another member. So previously, reassigning content was only allowed by administrators. So now that's available to your users should you choose to give them those permissions. So there's a lot of new tools in the map viewer. Again, if you're accustomed to also using ArcGIS Online, you'll be happy to see that these are now in Enterprise 11. So those include effects, charts, so bar chart, line chart, histogram, and a scatter plot. You'll see forms, the sketch tool, and then you have your consolidated map tool. So that's just going to be your search and your measurements, and those are out here, and they've consolidated those in there. And then with the effects are pretty cool. So I played around with those. I did create a bunch of screenshots. I wasn't sure we'd have time for them, but I really enjoyed the feature specific tab over here, allowing you to basically create an effect based on a condition. So in my instance, I'm going to take advantage of this. I have permits, and I would have one that has more information needed, and I'm going to take advantage of the drop shadow, I think, and kind of highlight that when the category is more information needed. So a lot of new things to be able to play around with. And another thing that I was particularly happy about was to be able to see HTML added here in our pop-up. So this functionality was available in Classic Map Viewer, and it wasn't initially included in the new Map Viewer. So now you can see it's over here. Your button for HTML in Enterprise 11 was not over there in 10.9.1. And another addition are templates for Arcade, which are also in ArcGIS Online, and now they're in Enterprise 11. So you've got a basic chart template, a fields list, and rich text. So we are losing raster basemaps, so they are in mature support. And if you're doing a brand new installation of Enterprise 11, you will only have vector basemaps. However, if you have maps and apps that are configured with raster basemaps and you upgrade to 11, those are going to remain configured and they will have a depreciated badge on them. So next we'll move over to content management. There was a lot here, so I decided to kind of just focus on new workflows for feature layers, and then I'll briefly mention some of the other functionality here too. So for creating feature layers, you now have the ability to name the layers before you create them. So over here, you can see it just says point layer, polygon layer. In Enterprise 11, I can name it and then I can decide, do I want it to be a point layer, a line layer, or a polygon layer? And just the whole process of creating the feature layer is just a little bit more intuitive in Enterprise 11. So some additional content management features, updates to the create tile and publishing scene layer experiences, resampling tile layers, response caching, the ability to publish geodata services from ArcPro, updates to the cloud data warehouse support, so Google BigQuery's one, and then those service webhooks and the custom data feeds in beta that I mentioned earlier. So next we'll move on to administration. So we'll talk about what we're losing. So as mentioned earlier, the ArcMap runtime is officially retired. And if you do decide to upgrade with services that have the ArcMap runtime and they can't be converted. So if you do decide to do that and they can be converted, they will be converted on upgrade. If they can't be converted, you're going to see this message and it's going to require you to migrate that over to the Pro runtime before you'll be able to start the services. Again, I would not recommend that you let the upgrade switch you over to the ArcPro runtime. Take care of these things before you decide to do the upgrade or the switch over for that. And then I did mention the .NET. So the removal of ArcGIS Enterprise SDK to .NET 6. So 10.9.1 is the last release to support .NET Framework 4.x-based SOEs and SOIs. So now that we've talked about what we're losing, let's talk about some of the things that we're going to see as additions to Enterprise 11. So apps, approved external apps. So now the administrator can restrict members' access to only approved external apps, which will improve security by preventing users from accessing applications not approved for the enterprise organization. So this can be found under organization, settings, security, and apps. So at 10.9.1, the ability to create administrative reports and export them to CSV was added to Enterprise. So this includes an item report, so listing attributes of each item in your organization, and member reports, a report listing the attributes of each member in your organization. And at Enterprise 11, you can now schedule your reports daily, weekly, or monthly. So I am just going to briefly show, in case any of you haven't, if you're at 10.9.1, maybe you haven't taken advantage of these. So that's going to be in under status in your enterprise portal. And this is kind of what it looks like. So this is organization items. So you get your title and your ID, your URL, what type it is, the date it was created, who owns it, how much storage it's taking up. So that's kind of nice. Its share level, any tags, and then whether or not it's a hosted feature service. So those are kind of handy reports to have. And now if you were using them, you can schedule them on a regular basis. So I'm kind of excited to see this operational health script, because when I'm doing upgrades, I actually have a lot of the checks that are going through here are things that I do as pre or post checks. And now I see them kind of wrapped up in this operational health script, which I think is great to run after you do your upgrade, or, you know, just anytime intermittently throughout the year, just to see how things are checking out. So some of you may have taken advantage of the security Python script that's available to you in your server and portal to basically assess your enterprise's deployment security. This is going to help you just assess the health of how things are going, your federation, is everything validating correctly. So I'm going to bring up an example of our report that I ran after upgrading. So the only thing here is that it's telling us that we don't have a Web GIS DR backup. So it's telling us that it recommends having that. And then where more information is available, it allows you to click it, but you can see some of the things that it checks for. So this is nice. Looks at the portal index, federated server validation, lets you know if your certificates are expiring in the next 3 weeks. Goes down and looks at your data stores, data store validation, log level. So just an overall good report to run to keep an eye on things. So lastly, we're just going to take a look at its apps. So I did mention that some of the apps were retiring. So these include our classic story map templates, ArcGIS dashboards classic, presentation for map viewer classic, and basically all configurable apps, except for the ones that I've listed here, which include the basic viewer, compare, crowdsource manager, crowdsource polling, crowdsource reporter, geoform, image mask, and image visit. So in 10.9.1, Esri changed how you access their solutions. This is now through the app section of your enterprise portal, as you can see down there. And at 11, Esri has now included that in the install. So at 10.9.1, this was a separate install that you had to do, download and install that after you installed your base deployment or upgraded that. And now it's built into Enterprise 11. So you do have to know, if you do not remove this, you will end up with 2 solutions down here too. So something to, and that's kind of across the board. I will just kind of mention that if people notice, you know, each time we upgrade, like when we upgraded from 10.8 to 10.9.1, field maps was included in there. So again, as they start to include these more in the upgrades, having to go back and remove anything that might have been added either through the apps or installed are things that you'll have to take into consideration. So at 11, Esri also added the Deep Learning Studio, which allows users to extract information from imagery and share it with their organization. So this app is part of the image server, allows you to capture training data, train a model, and then run inferencing. So this one, I think a lot of people will be happy to see this, is that now for a while in AGO here, we've had calculated expressions in field maps, and now that is available in Enterprise 11. So you can use those calculated expressions, conditional visibility. It's really great news for enterprise users in the coming release here. And lastly, couple changes that are nice for dashboards. So I'm a huge fan of table elements, and that was something in 10.9.1 that was not available. So that is now available at 11. And then also rendering only when filtered. That is now an option that is available to you in Enterprise 11. And then we do have these resources that we'll have on there for you. what's new in Enterprise 11. These are all great things to check out, whether you're deciding to go to 11 or you're just trying to get some more information. This is a great blog right here. Consider ArcGIS Enterprise 10.9.1 until you're ready to turn it up to 11. That was a super beneficial blog. A lot of links to, migrating to the apps that have been retired, moving from classic story maps to the new story maps. And again, that product life cycle that we looked at earlier, there's a link to that. And then I mentioned the ArcMap runtime migration tool demo. So I recorded that. I went through doing it in Server Manager. So in there you can go through, and it's if you have a lot of services to migrate, that can be a little monotonous. You're clicking the edit pencil a lot. The batch tool is really nice for doing that. It allows you to go in a list mode, kind of list out all of your services that can be migrated, and then let you switch over to the update mode to be able to then update those.